Hello and welcome to today's video. In this video, what we're going to be discussing are cell membranes, their function, and what they're currently made up of. So remember, the cell membrane is kind of like the bouncer of a cell. It goes ahead and determines what comes in and what goes out. So by the time this is all said and done, we should have a pretty good grasp on that. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we're going to discuss is homeostasis. Homeostasis, by definition, is the balance cells must maintain with their surrounding environment. Now, this is an incredibly important piece of information here because if that homeostasis isn't maintained, it can lead to a lot of problems with the cell. So cells maintain homeostasis by controlling what enters and what exits. So depending on the cell and where it's currently found, material will either be flowing into the cell or out of the cell, or sometimes both at the same time. So the cell membrane. The cell membrane is comprised of two layers of phospholipids. So we call this a phospholipid bilayer. So two layers of lipids. So phospholipids have two components. They have a hydrophobic tail and a hydrophilic head. So remember, hydrophilic means water-loving, whereas hydrophobic means water-fearing. And if you go ahead and take a look, this makes sense because the heads are facing the extracellular fluid and the cytoplasm of the cell, whereas the hydrophobic tails are currently found pointing inside towards one another, free of the liquid. So proteins are also found embedded in the cell membrane to help move larger material in and out of the cell. So cell membranes are comprised of a bunch of tiny little phospholipids that go ahead and make up the entire membrane. So it's not just one solid piece. It's made up of a wide variety of different tinier pieces. So the cell membrane is called a fluid mosaic. The reason it's called this is because, like we said, if you think back to it, the phospholipids are technically suspended between two different layers of liquid. So it's called a fluid mosaic because if you take a look at these two photos here, these are examples of mosaics. A mosaic is a picture that is made up of a bunch of tiny little shards, normally of glass. So as you can see, all the shards or tiny pieces working together create an image, just like all the tiny phospholipids working together create the lipid bilayer, or the cell membrane. So the cell membrane, I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video here and proceed to just give a rough diagram of what you're currently seeing. So, for a cell membrane, here's what we currently have. We have the outside of the cell, we have the inside of the cell, or the cytoplasm, and then we have our phospholipids, or the cell membrane. Now, within these phospholipids, you'll find these protein channels. So the protein channels are used to go ahead and have larger objects or material that can't normally diffuse through the cell membrane. It kind of helps them move things in. So it's kind of like when you have to move a couch when you're moving, you want to go ahead and get some help. Meanwhile, up top we have these carbohydrate chains. So these carbohydrate chains go ahead and they wave back and forth, and they help the cell recognize things that need to come in. So now you don't have to go ahead and make it 3D and all that when you draw it. What I'd recommend is going ahead and just making it look similar. So give it your best shot. Alright, I'll see you on the next slide. You go ahead and take your time. So the cell membrane has some control over what can cross it, so that only certain molecules either enter or leave. We call this selective permeability, or selectively permeable, meaning that it can go ahead and choose what comes in and what goes out. So think of the cell membrane kind of like a strainer. So it goes ahead and a strainer lets water pass through, yet it keeps pasta in, hence it is selectively permeable. So the cell membrane will let some things in, but not others. It's kind of picky in that aspect. So that right there is going to go ahead and close up this video here on the cell membrane, what it is, and its components. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact your instructor. They will point you in the right direction. Now that that's taken care of, thank you very much for your time and watching this video, and have yourself a wonderful day.